Good morning. Thank you for joining today's Manufacturing and International Trade Committee meeting of HIA LI. Thank you for your time and for your interest. Appreciate it in this early morning. Today we'll be talking about international trade. And as you may remember, previously we covered different countries. So today we have an expert panel. Your experts, so we are very excited to welcome them in our panel, and we'll be talking about how to do business with Vietnam. We'll start with some information about our committee, and then we have some updates from HIA LI. Also, we have Cynthia Colon today, so we'll have also some updates from MTRC, and then we'll start our panel discussion. My name is Kevin Devecioğlu. I'm a co-chair of Manufacturing and International Trade Committee. I am with Ron Loveland, our co-chair, my colleague. He is also connected today. Hello, Ron. So together we basically organize events for manufacturers, educational events, informative events, and previously before COVID-19, we were also organizing on-site meetings at manufacturers' locations, as you may know. So our basic mission is to help manufacturers thrive and become successful in non-violent area. Also, if you remember, last week we had an expert panel, and we talked about how to prepare to reopen our businesses after COVID-19 pandemic. So the subject matter last week was legal and insurance considerations as for companies to be prepared. And Rob was with us from USI. We had also Will from Better Green. So altogether, basically, we talk about how companies can prepare for the time after COVID-19. Also, before we talk about HIA LI updates, I'd like to also invite you to our LinkedIn group. We have a LinkedIn group to stay connected and to have conversations and sharings basically on a daily basis. I have the link on the screen, so we definitely encourage you and invite you to join our LinkedIn group. Okay, great. So Tony Joy is with us. I'd like to invite Tony Joy from HIA LI. And we'd like to hear updates from the association. Tony Joy, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Ron and Kevin, our co-chairs for our manufacturing committee, for the wonderful programming that they've been doing, they continue to do, and they have been doing specifically throughout this pandemic. So you guys have been doing a wonderful job. Some updates from the HIA LI. We have been very active with the county and the state, just getting information, critical business information and resources, and sending it out to our membership in the Long Island business community. We'll continue to do so as we continue to move through the phases. And one of the things that we are excited about that's kind of a newer initiative is that we recently partnered with the Department of Labor in Suffolk County to help bring resources and information to manufacturing companies. So the DOL is looking to help provide some safety and health and wellness information, whether it's coming into your buildings for maybe a lunch and learn or some type of a virtual interaction. So if this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to the HIA LI, let us know, and we can make that connection for you. Again, they're working on getting literature and all that sort of thing to help really educate in the language or any way that they can to just help spread the word for maybe those who need it a little bit more. So so that's coming up, and that's active. So please let us know. A couple programs that I'd love to just give a little bit of information about. This Thursday on July 9th, we have Getting Back to Business. It's the Small Business Task Force Open Forum, and the title of it is Small Business Human Resource Challenges During COVID-19. So we have a wonderful panel who will be discussing hiring, remote working procedures, safety policies, current mandates, things along those lines as it relates to HR. So if that's something you're interested in, please check out our calendar, and you can register right on the HIA LI calendar. On that same day, we do have our happy hour Thursday. So kind of a fun, relaxed environment, and we will be focusing on, we have a theme this week, which is drink of choice. So if you have a fun drink that you wanted to share, or the ingredients and how to make it, we'd be happy to have you join and just kind of network with some other folks in a very casual environment via Zoom. So we do also have coming up this Friday is our deadline for the Business Achievement Awards. It's our 26th Annual Business Achievement Awards. If you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to nominate your company. It's a great way to get exposure and share the great accomplishments that your company has been doing, possibly throughout this pandemic, or just in general throughout the year, any great accomplishments, and just really highlight businesses during these crazy times. So it would, I strongly submit, go ahead and submit something. If you have any questions, again, you can reach out to me directly via email, or give a call over to the office. I'd be happy to further explain or send along an application for you to complete. And again, the deadline is for this Friday. Just a couple other things that we have coming up. On the 13th of July, we have a CEO forum featuring Paul Pachter. And again, just a great way to get into the head of a CEO during these times, and how the pandemic has impacted the way that his leadership style is and how it's impacted his organization. So just kind of getting a little bit more in depth in a one-on-one conversation with him. We do also have on July 16th, we have a new and prospective member information meeting. So whether you're a new member or you've been a member for a while, it's again a great opportunity to network, as well as get some more information about how you can take advantage of some of the member benefits that we have with the with the HIA LI. And then we do have our How Will Tourism Change in the New Norm. That's coming up in July 22nd. So if you're doing a staycation this summer, or if you are looking to travel at all over the summer or in the next few months this year, definitely I encourage you to join in. You'll hear from the Commissioner of Long Island MacArthur Airport, Discover Long Island. So just really important kind of information to hear, precautions about traveling, things like that. So that's coming up also on July 22nd. And then just two other really great things that we have coming up we're excited about. We have our golf outing coming up on September 3rd. We have two wonderful honorees. So if you are an avid golfer, or like to golf, or enjoy golfing, get some fresh air, we encourage you to join us on September 3rd. And then lastly, we do have coming up in October, on October 7th, we have our annual trade show. So a lot of great programming coming up, a lot of exciting things that we're looking forward to. And of course, if there are any questions, please reach out to the HIA LI. You can email any of us, or just give us a call. And again, if you can, just continue to check the event calendar for updates as we go along. So thank you very much. I think I covered it.
Okay, great. Tony Joy, thank you so much. I appreciate it. As you see, HIA LI is very active, many things going on, many things to learn, many things to attend. I appreciate it. Thank you for the update. Now we are up to date, and we know what to do next. Great. So we have another guest today, Cynthia Colon from MTRC. She has some updates about MTNC activities. And Cynthia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Kevin.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So thank you for having MTRC here. Thank you to you and Ron and the HIA Manufacturing Committee, and thank you all for being such great partners to MTRC. So I'd like to just give a few updates. MTRC is wrapping up our 5th year of our first 5-year term. The allocated funding for 2020 has been fully committed. However, we are moving as fast as possible to close out what we have about 30 remaining projects for this year. Any released funding that becomes available, we hope to open up in the fall for any new applications. Okay, right now MTRC has committed funding to 403 projects to over 200 unique companies on Long Island. So throughout the past 4 months, we have been staying connected with our program partners to continue to connect state and federal agencies to the industry. We continue to work with National Grid on their manufacturing productivity program. 2 Long Island companies have been funded the $40,000 award. MTRC continues to plan the Coffee and Connect that will resume hopefully now, either at the end of the summer or the beginning of the fall. We're going to wait until we get some more information from our federal sponsors regarding the CARES Act emergency funding that was allocated to New York MEP. And we're also waiting on more information regarding the funding for the next 5 years. All right. So once that is information is secured, we will let everybody know and put together a Coffee and Connect to get that information out to you all. And lastly, the MTRC Robotics Camp has become virtual. We opened our application again for the 2019 summer, and we received 100 applications for only 30 scholarship opportunities. And we've secured a first session for 30 students on Long Island to receive the robotics kit and instruction for 10 days from Stony Brook University professor and graduate students. We are looking, there's an opportunity for sponsorship to host another 30 students from 30 different school districts on Long Island to host a second session. If any companies are interested in that type of sponsorship to support the students, please reach out to mtrc@stonybrook.edu. We reached out to underrepresented school districts on Long Island and asked them to recommend students to apply to the program, and we were very taken back and very pleased with the applications that we received. So if we can get another 30 students to participate in the program for a second session, that will be fantastic. And that's it for MTRC. Any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at mtrc@stonybrook.edu or through Kevin and Ron. Thank you both.
Thank you, Cynthia. Much appreciated. Thank you for the updates. So I think we are getting to our panel discussion. So before I make introductions of our panelists, Ron, do you have any updates that you'd like to share with our attendees?
Yeah, I just want to mention that August 12th, we're going to be having a manufacturing committee meeting about stress, right? Anybody stressed out these days with the coronavirus and the economy and everything else going on? So we're going to have a panel of experts talking about different ways that you as a business owner or you as an employee can better handle stress in your operations. So join us on Wednesday, August 12th at 8:30. Look forward to chatting then. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Ron. Much appreciated. Yes, I'm also looking forward to that meeting. So we'll need to learn some neat techniques, I think, to control stress, right? Especially nowadays, a lot is going on. So we are looking forward to it. Thank you, Ron, for the update. Okay, great. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists, and then we can get started. Again, as I mentioned earlier, so in addition to manufacturing, international trade is also one of our missions is to share educational information, informative information with our community at HIA LI. So from time to time, we cover different regions, different countries as to do business, basically. So we like to learn about those markets, different countries, how they do business, how their economy, what type of opportunities that we have as U.S. companies as to sell, as to buy, and as to interact. So these meetings are very informative. That's how we designed it. And today we'll be focusing on the Vietnam as to how to do business with Vietnam. Okay, so let me introduce our panelists. We have Maricel Tres-Palacios from U.S. Commercial Service. Maricel is a senior international trade specialist in Long Island office of the U.S. Commercial Service, which is the export promotion arm of the U.S. government. Her office helps companies from Nassau and Suffolk counties increase their international sales by entering or expanding to global markets in a strategic manner. Her main industries or focus are aerospace, defense, safety, security, ICT, and advanced manufacturing with 3D printing, robotics, machinery, and advanced materials. Marisol, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it. We have Ryan Hollowell. He is Acting Principal Commercial Officer from U.S. Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City. Ryan is in this role. Ryan manages a team of 7 locally engaged staff members and is the commercial service lead for the aviation, energy, and digital economy industries. Prior to Ho Chi Minh City, Ryan was the regional commercial officer and digital attaché for ASEAN in the U.S. Embassy in Singapore. Ryan, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us today. We have Elizabeth Mullerman. She's an economic development specialist for Empire State Development's Long Island Regional Office. We work also very close with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So we like to start with Marisol, and she'll be sharing information with us as to what type of resources are available for U.S. companies regarding doing business with Vietnam. I like to make Marisol presenter so we can follow her presentation. Let me see. Okay, Marisol, you are the presenter right now.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much. So, yes, we can see your screen. Please make it full screen. We allocated 20 minutes for our panelists. So when 5 minutes left, I'll make an announcement. I'll remind you. Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here bright and early. And yes, my name is Marisol Tres Palacios, and I work for the U.S. Commercial Service. Let me see how it's there. Okay. So exactly who we are, as Kevin mentioned, the U.S. Commercial Service is the export promotion arm of the U.S. government. We are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we are a federal agency whose main mission is to help American companies export their goods and services, help them find business opportunities overseas, and put them in front of potential business partners. So how exactly do we do this? We do this through a pretty extensive network of domestic trade specialists here at home in the U.S. and commercial officers like Ryan Hollowell that are located in our overseas posts, usually pretty much at our U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. We have offices in the U.S., over 100 of them. On Long Island, we have an office which is located in Old Westbury. And overseas, we are in more than 75 countries. And in those countries where we do not have a physical presence, we mostly work with our State Department colleagues. So if you're looking at a market, chances are that we cover it and we can help you. So more specifically on Long Island, our office is located in Old Westbury in the New York Institute of Technology campus. It's a 2-person office. The director is Susan Sudoka, and I have listed there a few of the industries that she covers, mainly healthcare, education, travel, and tourism, among quite a few others. And then there is me. I cover aerospace and defense, advanced manufacturing, safety and security, and a few others. And just a little background here, we help companies that are headquartered in Nassau and Suffolk counties. And our main requirement is that whatever the company make or manufactures has at least 51% U.S. content. As a federal agency, this is one of the main requirements that we have. And many of our services are free of charge: counseling, commercial diplomacy. I'll cover them a few. Some of them are fee-based, although I have to make a notification that due to the current crisis that we're facing, many of these fees have been waived. But even when they're not waived, they're moderately priced, especially in comparison to the private sector. So how exactly is it that we help? I have in here the 4 main areas where we concentrate: export counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking, and commercial diplomacy. I'll briefly cover them a little bit on export counseling. So if you have a question about your intellectual property, if you have a question about standards, what's the electronic socket that applies in Vietnam, for example, If you have questions about just general market strategies, entry strategies into a foreign market, we can help with that. I also want to mention that we have an e-commerce innovation lab, given the huge emphasis and the huge importance of these means of sales, e-commerce. So we words to see how's your search visibility, check for spam, and along those lines. Some of the couple of examples, the questions that we get. How can I be sure Brazil will accept the testing that has been done on my product? Can you help me find an in-country attorney to review my contract? Can I export to Cuba, Syria, Sudan? So it's quite a wide range of inquiries that we get from companies of all sizes and in all industries. And I'm not claiming to be an expert in all of these areas, but that's when we can tap into that trade ecosystem that we're plugged in, especially with our commercial specialists overseas, like Ryan Hollowell, who know the markets very well, and their staff. Who usually tend to be locally employed people that speak the language, understand the business customs, the opportunities that are there, the challenges, and how to help American companies be successful in that particular market because they've been doing it for so many years. So the other area, market intelligence, we have country commercial guides. These are free of charge. They're online. I encourage anyone who's considering looking into a market or looking into how to open up an office in Mexico. This would be a really good first resource. One service that we offer, initial market checks. So let's say that you're looking to enter a market, but you're not so sure. You want to see what's the potential, if your product even makes sense to be targeted in this market. We can help with that. We can do customized market research. The Census Department is part. The census is part of the Department of Commerce, and we have access to much research data that they produce and a few others. If you're interested in doing a company background, we can help you with that. So if you're ready to sign that deal with that partner in Thailand, but you want to do that extra due diligence of making sure that their financials are okay, that they're not a liability, we can help you with that. And then business matchmaking is one of our main areas. This is when we try to put you in front directly of that potential partner, that potential buyer. We can do single company promotions. We can do single company promotions is if you want to launch a product, if you want to do a training, you can use the space at the embassy or the consulate to do that, and we take care of all the logistics. So from here, I'll mention the international partner search. Given the current times, international partner search is when our colleagues overseas, they pre-screen potential partners for you and make introductions via email, via phone. It doesn't require traveling. The similar to that would be the gold key. That's when you travel to the market, and we not only screen not only set up meetings for you, but we can attend them with you and arrange them for you. But of course, because of all the challenges involved in traveling, the gold key is not the main focus right now. I would say focus on the international partner search. Of course, we do many trade events, trade missions, trade shows, domestic and internationally. So if you're ever attending, hopefully pretty soon, trade shows, please reach out to us just to see if our people are going to be there so you can expand your networking. Sometimes they bring potential buyers with them, international buyers with them, and they can do matchmaking right there on the spot. And finally, the last area would be commercial diplomacy. Completely free of charge service, and it involves, for example, if you are systematically, consistently facing a trade barrier that is inhibiting you from making an international transaction, let us know. These are hard to solve and they're time consuming and they take time, but we can try to address them. Trade dispute resolution, but the main one I think I will also mention is advocacy. The Advocacy Center. This is if you ever apply to a foreign tender, a procurement, a foreign bid, and you want advocacy at the U.S. government level, government to government level, we can help with that. Okay, and it's a really neat office that we have. And right now, I'll just mention a few of upcoming events, just because webinars not only have become the means to get informed, but also to engage in a little bit of virtual networking. This one's one of our very own. Our office is organizing it. I spoke about digital strategies and e-commerce. It's going to be free, and it's develop your digital strategies for cross-border e-commerce. It's going to be July 14th. So I encourage you to participate in that. Intelligent Manufacturing in Europe coffee chat series. So pretty good for networking if Europe is your market of choice. I have listed there all of the countries that will be participating, and these are our people, as I mentioned, those foreign posts, people like Ryan Howell, who would speak in shortly after me, that are going to be speaking about their markets. And it's always good for them to know what types of American companies are looking to do business in their region of the world. So please join us for that. If Europe is the main area for you. Clean Energy Finance webinar, that's on July 27th. The one on the bottom, Women's Global Trade Empowerment, please really try to look into it. It's going to cover a lot of areas: aerospace and defense, automotive, design and destruction, design and construction, sorry. And it's not only for women, but it's going to be a really neat multi-day type of conference. We have a doing business in Eurasia, especially focusing on infrastructure. There are a couple of sessions there that I've listed, exploring data with sensors specifically for emerging technologies, if that's something that's of interest to you. So ICT cybersecurity, specifically in Latin America, energy projects in the Western Hemisphere, defense and security in the Caribbean region. So as you can tell, we've been organizing quite a wide range of webinars focusing on not only industries, but also geographic regions. This one that's coming up on restrictions of hazardous substances in Europe, we'll have a top consultant speaking in that, if that's of importance to you. And another one focusing on Europe, which is security. So if you're in the security area, safety and security, please look into that. And this is our small but pretty, I want to think, effective team from Long Island, Susan Siroka and I. Our contact information is there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're more than eager to help Long Island companies go global. That's all. Thank you very much.
Marissa, thank you so much. Very informative, very educational. Much appreciated, as always. And you also mentioned about the webinars that's actually very common nowadays. That's also a sector. I mean, more and more webinars actually we perform and we see in the marketplace. Even nowadays, we see virtual trade shows, basically, as for interacting with businesses. So it looks like it's going to be more and more nowadays, and it is also great to learn from you what is coming up as to education webinars in your agenda. I appreciate it. Now I'd like to invite Ryan Hallowell, and we'll be learning more about Vietnam and how to do business with Vietnam. Let me see if I can make him presenter. Let's see. Okay. Perfect. Whenever you can, if you can share your screen, that'd be great. Okay, we can see your screen. Perfect. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. So, floor is yours.
Great. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and thanks for organizing, Kevin. It's great to talk with all of you. Again, my name is Ryan Hollowell, commercial officer based at the U.S. Consulate in Ho Chi Minh City, temporarily back in the U.S. I'm just going to kind of go over. I know, just go over a little bit more on the mechanics of the Vietnamese market. First question we always receive right now is, with the current global pandemic, where does that stand for Vietnam? What does that mean for Vietnam's economy and for U.S. businesses? So before I jump into this, and again, I'm not going to cover everything that's in here that could take an hour plus. But you know, that's Kevin. Feel free to share this presentation with your attendees and other members of your organization.
Sure.
But if you think where Vietnam currently stands is, frankly, we joke that they're kind of in their own little bubble right now. In total, they've had around 330 cases, 0 deaths, and their domestic market is 100% open. Events are taking place, programs are taking place, large gatherings are taking place, as they haven't had a case of community transmission in, I think the number now is up to about 85 days, so more than 2 months. And so the only issue, of course, for U.S. businesses is that getting in is not possible right now, to be blunt, just because of the borders are closed and it takes a special visa to get acquainted. But before I jump into the presentation, one of the things that it does mean is that Vietnam's learning a new way of doing business. Historically, just like much of Asia, they've been very focused on you know, person-to-person interactions, or I should say face-to-face interactions, lunches, dinners, you know, just developing that rapport on an individual level. And not to say that that's gone away at all, but what we've been able to successfully do with them is start to do more virtual introductions. As Marcel was talking about the international partner search and virtual introduction service, we've been doing that over the last 2 months, and the Vietnamese companies have been receptive to it. Frankly, the Vietnamese government have been hosting meetings at the government level, also virtually. So it's something that they're learning to adjust and to adapt a new way of doing business. It won't be commonplace forever, because you know, so much of that trust is inherent in what they do. But it's nice to see them adapt and to change to the times. So what does that mean for the Vietnamese market? You know, this year they were poised to have about a 7% GDP growth, which has been pretty consistent over the last 5 to 6 years. But now with the current pandemic, it's actually been bumped down to a modest about anywhere from 2.5% to 3%. But when you think about it in today's global context, it's still pretty good to be able to demonstrate, you know, a 2.5% to 3% set of growth. And why is that? You know, you have a population that's quickly approaching 100 million people. You have a young population that's about 60% of the population's under the age of 35. And you have a population that is having more money than they've ever had before. In the sense of moving up, creating a larger middle class, and this is in Vietnamese terms. Middle class is earning anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 a year. But that's significant because what that is doing is you know, with more capital, what do folks want? People want more. They want better. So they want more U.S. products. They want products of a higher standard. They want to travel. So you see a lot of opportunities in the aviation industry, the travel and tourism industry, and they want better education for their family. So they can also have an opportunity to grow beyond the means of what their parents and their family currently has. And if you think about it, Vietnam has more than 30,000 students studying in the U.S. at any given year. One of the few markets in Asia Pacific that's actually increasing, very modestly, but increasing in the students they send to the U.S. And why is that? Because the Vietnamese associate the U.S. with prosperity. They associate the U.S. with better technology, better products, safer technologies, and they associate it with becoming a more developed country. Back, I'd say probably just 5-6 years ago, many would say that Vietnam would aspire to be like a Thailand, where you have medical tourism, you have a good growing economy. But now Vietnam is looking beyond Thailand and eyeing the likes of Korea and Japan in their aspirations of aviation, smart cities, healthcare, energy technology, and all of that. But why does all this resonate well for U.S. companies? And a lot of it is, you know, actually I need to update this the stat at the bottom here, but the statistic now is about 94% of the Vietnamese have a favorable view of the United States. And so that translates well for U.S. companies. It translates well for U.S. products, because this younger population of, almost 60 million people under the age of 35 have grown up with the internet. They've grown up with these technologies, so they have an understanding of what is out there outside of their borders, outside of their neighbors, and outside of what they find in China. And so they want that and they long for that. And so here are just some of the main cities here that we work with. Ho Chi Minh City, where we are, is essentially kind of the New York City, the greater New York City area of Vietnam, where Hanoi is the Washington D.C. So you have that eternal struggle within the country. That's just Ho Chi Minh City is the economic center. They are the home of innovation for the country, and you always have that struggle with Hanoi of that competition. And so when we have companies that come to us, we always say you need to have two representatives, one for Hanoi and Haiphong in the northern part of the country, and another for Ho Chi Minh City, which is in the southern part of the country, which is Da Nang on southward. And part of that is because, even though there's just one language, the dialects are certainly a little bit different. And, if you're going to have a distributor in the New England area, it's not going to be the same person that you're going to use for Georgia and Florida, just because it's an inherent different market, different people, different likes, and different wants. Okay, and so again, you have a market that is really growing fast, as you can see just from the historical data of the GDP. Again, this year for 2020, it'll be closer to 2.5 to 3%, but still significant when as you don't have many countries that globally that are growing at this rate with an infrastructure that's already in place. And so that's just something that we always like to key on, where 5 or 6 years ago, our colleagues in Myanmar were inundated with requests because you had a 7% growth rate, but they were just building the basic bridges, roads, airports that were needed. Vietnam has that. Can they do better? Definitely, but you have a lot of that inherent know-how of doing business. And people always say, yes, Vietnam is a communist country, and that is unbelievably true. But we always say that when it comes to the economics of the country, it's truly more of a capitalistic market. They were a founding member of TPP, now CPTPP. They just signed a free trade agreement with the entire European Union. So you have a country that is that recognizes that if you want to provide a better future for your population, you need to expand to international markets. Now, that's not to say the relationship between the U.S. and Vietnam doesn't have its perils. If you look at the bottom number down at the bottom there, the trade balance with the U.S., it's growing pretty quickly. In 2018, it was $40 billion trade deficit. In 2019, it was almost $56 billion. So it is growing quickly, but what that means for the U.S., though, in my opinion, is that it's an opportunity for U.S. companies because of the fact that Vietnamese are afraid of the implications that China has faced because of a growing trade deficit. And so there is a push to do more with U.S. companies. There is a push to bring in more U.S. products and services because they recognize that in order to succeed, their companies need access to the U.S. market, but that needs to be reciprocal and in a fair trade environment. Here are some of the, I'll say, I apologize, I need to update some of this. Ranking as a U.S. source of imports and the export market, and in total trade is a little bit outdated. Actually, Vietnam is now the 14th largest trading partner of the United States, quickly approaching the likes of Italy and Ireland, and actually surpassing Brazil. So that is just an indication of how quickly that economy is growing. A lot of what they import, it's a lot in agriculture right now, but we're seeing a lot historically in everything from franchises to machinery to woodworking machinery. Because if you look at what the market generally produces is consumer electronics, textiles, furniture, footwear, but they're moving more into higher end manufacturing. And that is a key opportunity for U.S. inputs into that process. One of the indicators as to that we show is there's a company called VIN Group, and it's an indicator of how the Vietnamese market is going, because the VIN Group is making a locally manufactured smartphone, and generally speaking, the Vietnamese, globally, it's not really going to resonate too well, because they want Apple, they want better, they want higher quality products. But to do so, they partnered with Qualcomm, and they partnered with a European interface designer. They're now also manufacturing electric vehicles within the country. And again, they've done that smartly because they partnered with BMW, and they've taken over, they purchased Ford's manufacturing facilities. So again, they're doing this with an eye of, yes, sure, Vietnam is a middle income market, but as a whole, you can do good things in Vietnam that are that are developed market quality. So some of the market opportunities, I know we just got a couple minutes left here. Big one is the aviation market. Overall, both the passenger and the cargo growth is growing exponentially, 15 to 25%. Air traffic growth is growing exponentially. Now, the issue though is that they've outgrown all of their airports. And so as a result, there are about 23 projects that the Vietnamese are pursuing that are either going to be new construction airports or renovations and expansion projects. And so that's a lot of opportunity for those that supply into the airport design, construction, maintenance, everything down to the duty free. But also with the purchase of airlines, with MRO facilities, all of those things are big. In addition to commercial aviation, you also have an opportunity, again, this will be shared with the group later, you also have an opportunity as part of that in the defense sector, and that's something that's growing pretty quickly for us. The U.S. historically, up until I believe former President Obama's visit in 2015, the U.S. was not allowed to sell defense-related products to the Vietnamese, but that has since been lifted. And so there's a big push from our embassy colleagues to help U.S. defense companies gain the Vietnamese market that's historically been tied up with both Russian and Chinese technology. So second market opportunity as well, or third I should say, is energy. And main reason is capacity for energy is growing 10 to 12% per year. And this covers everything from LNG to renewables as well. And down to even the need for greater grid infrastructure and modernization. And so that really ties into our Smart Cities initiative, which I'll touch on in a second. But healthcare, again, like I said, you have more money, you want better healthcare. There is a central healthcare service but one of the things that is increasing is the ability for people to purchase a private healthcare insurance. And so that's something that's important to keep in mind as well, because that per capita income means that they want better healthcare. They don't want to have to go to Singapore. They don't want to have to go to Thailand for healthcare. And so as a result, there's a lot of opportunity in medical devices, pharmaceutical, but even down to trainings of how to create efficiencies with hospitals, and how to update equipment and devices and maintain them. And then also health IT, hardware, electronic records. And then of course there's smart cities, which has taken up a lot of our time historically as well, because Vietnam has about 25 cities that are part of cities and provinces that are, or 21, I should sorry, that are part of a smart cities initiative for the country. One example that we always talk about is not the intelligent transportation system, but in Ho Chi Minh City, they're developing a 911 system. Currently in the country, if you have a fire emergency, you call the fire department. If you call if you have a police emergency, you have to call the police. If you have a medical emergency, you actually have to call the hospital that you want to go to and ask them to send someone out to come pick you up. Now, traffic is horrible in Ho Chi Minh City, and by the time you get to a hospital, the hospital that we're told to go to, from my house, it would probably take about an hour to an hour and a half if I had to sit there and wait for an ambulance to come and pick me up. So these are just some of the things: emergency responses, street lighting, smart grid technology, metering. E-government is really big because they recognize the need for greater efficiencies. And frankly, when you have e-government solutions, that also helps cut down on corruption and fraud within the system. And so that's important to them. So some of the market challenges, for as great as Vietnam is, it will test your patience. It will test your patience. And so really you need to learn to play, I guess, the quote unquote slow game here, and have the Vietnamese, develop that relationship. So because they will test your patience along the way. There's always a big transparency and corruption crackdown that's continuing to get better, but it's still a problem. But then also, U.S. companies face issues with tied official development assistance. So the Japanese will give money for a water project that'll be tied to the selection of Japanese technologies. And so there's opportunities there, but there's a lot of competition there throughout Asia Pacific, but also the EU that's historically been there. So for the tips in doing business in Vietnam is patience. You have to have your patience, but also you need to you have to work with a local distributor and a local agent. There's no other way around it. Companies always say they want to sell directly, but in theory that's great, but just the language barrier alone you'll run into, and so that's a big issue. And that's something where, as Marisol had mentioned, working in partnership with the Long Island USIAC, we can work with you on between our teams in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City if there is an interest in the market of identifying what's best, Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, and if so, okay, then what's the best approach? So that's an opportunity there. But a lot of folks will also, as you guys know, you're contacted by people from all over the globe that want to work with you. They want to represent you. They want to be your distributor. Let us work with you on that. Please engage us to help with the due diligence of that. We're constantly dealing with fraud and abuse cases of contracts that just were not fulfilled. So please let us work with you on that to help you navigate those waters. Whether it's a quick, hey, we'll do a quick Google search, or we'll make sure they're in the market. But we could dive a little bit deeper and go out to their offices through our formal international company profile. Go out to their offices, check their references, and just expand that network with them. So please engage us on that, and we'll make it as quick and painless as possible. So again, I'm not going to touch too much into this, as a lot of the services are already covered by Marisol. But again, we have our teams in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, and so it's a great opportunity for us to engage with you in the country that is growing, even in today's terms at almost 3%, and is a good opportunity for you. So I will stop there and leave it to questions, and I think I'm just at my 20 minutes. So thank you very much.
Ryan, thank you very much. Very educational, very informative presentation. We also have questions, and we'll share the questions with you in Q&A session coming up shortly. Thank you very much. And it's very interesting though to learn about the Vietnam market. It's amazing. It's good to know. It's learning and great tips. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk more about it during Q&A session. Oops. Okay. All right, great. So now I'd like to invite Elizabeth from Empire State Development. Let me see if I can make you the presenter from my control panel. Okay, great. Elizabeth, you are the presenter right now, if you can share your screen. So please let us know what type of resources are available from Empire State Development for US businesses, and floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thanks for having us. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here with you this morning. My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Empire State Development. I work in the Long Island Regional Office, and I will talk to you a little bit about our Global New York programs, which can help companies that are looking to start exporting. So just a little bit of background on Empire State Development. We are the Economic Development Agency for New York State. We are broken up into different economic development regions, which you can see on the map here. And I work on Long Island, which covers Nassau and Suffolk specifically. So we help companies that are looking to grow on Long Island, that are looking to hire employees, that need assistance with economic development programs. And then I also act as kind of a liaison for Nassau and Suffolk County for our Global New York division, which is based out of New York City. And our Global New York division helps businesses that are interested in finding new export markets. We also have an FDI team that can work with companies internationally that are looking to maybe invest in New York State. There's a contact in the Global New York office named Brian Tubner, who is the contact for Nassau and Suffolk County, and I will give you his contact information at the end of the presentation if you have any follow-up questions, because he's the one who reviews all the applications for the programs that I'm going to talk about. We also have foreign offices, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. I guess I'll just get into it, our different programs. So we have 3 different programs that can help companies that are looking to start exporting. The first is the Global New York Fund. It's a $35 million grant fund that provides loans and grants to businesses and nonprofits. The grants are up to $25,000, and they're provided to help companies explore markets and create jobs. And you can use those funds for a lot of different things that you might be doing to start exporting. They include market customization, participation in trade shows, export workshops, product adaptations, so you can meet regulatory requirements, which that one I think is particularly important because there might be tweaks that you need to make to your products to get into a certain market, such as Vietnam, and this will help provide a grant that will help pay for that. There's also different ways that companies can use the Global New York Fund. So just as an example, if a trade organization such as HIA wanted to set up a trade show to a certain area, they could apply for the Global New York Fund and then provide cost offsetting grants to the companies that wanted to participate with them. So that's kind of a different way that the program can be used that not many people take advantage of, but is an option particularly for nonprofits that maybe would like to conduct their own international travel with different businesses. The next program is the State Trade Expansion Program. So this is a program that's done in partnership with the Small Business Administration. And it's a grant program that can allow companies to travel internationally. There's a few different eligibility standards. You have to meet the SBSI standards. You have to be in business for at least 1 year. You have to have this resources available to start international trade. And for this program, similar to U.S. commercial service, 51% of your finished product has to be of United States content. For our other programs, 51% of your finished product has to be New York State content. So if you wanted to use the Global New York Fund or the program I'll talk about next, the Export Marketing Assistance Service, it would have to be New York State completed. But that includes different things such as your manufacturing, your warehousing, the value of your raw materials, and advertising. So it's not necessarily the finished product, it's all the things that go into it. So there's a little bit of flexibility on that. The STEP program can pay for a lot of different programs. It can pay for trade missions. Sometimes Global New York does their own trade missions. It'll pay for U.S. commercial service subscriptions. So Maricel and Ryan both mentioned Gold Key Service and a couple of the different programs that they have. So if you wanted to participate in those and wanted to receive a grant for that, then this would be an option to do that. It also can pay for trade show exhibitions. So if you wanted to do the Hanover Messe Trade Mission, this can help pay for the costs of exhibiting there. It also will pay for some domestic trade shows as well. So we've gotten a couple of questions about the Fancy Food Trade Show that's done in New York, I believe. So that is sometimes an option. You could apply for a grant to exhibit there. It just, I think, has to have an international component if it's a domestic trade show. It'll also pay for export training workshops and sales trips. If you were taking a sales trip to a country that you currently export in or wanted to start exporting in, you could apply for a STEP grant that would help offset the costs of travel there. One of the restrictions is you can only apply for a maximum of 3 STEP awards per funding period. So right now we are in, I guess there's 2 STEP programs running right now. They both end in September of 2021. So if you were a company, you could apply for a maximum of 3 grants in the period of time that ends September 2021. So that's still a significant amount of funding that's available, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to use different programs and travel internationally. There are some companies that aren't eligible for STEP, and those are listed on this slide. It includes law firms, and nonprofits can't apply for STEP, but they can apply for the Global New York Fund, which was listed earlier. Our next program is the Export Marketing Assistance Service. And so this is a program that helps businesses find sales agents or distributors abroad. We have offices located in several different countries, South Africa, Israel, China, Mexico, Canada, all of Europe. They're based out of the UK, but it covers all of Europe, and India. So if those are markets that you're looking to go into, you can use the Export Marketing Assistance Service, and our international agents can help you find the contacts that you need, as well as conduct customized research. This program is free. It's just limited to the countries that we have international offices in. And what they'll do is you'll fill out an application, and then they will review that application and help find the contacts that you need in the industry that you're looking to go into, in the country that you're looking to go into. So that's a great program, and it allows you to get more contacts in the country that you're looking to go into. They will also, if you were to do a trade mission with Empire State Development, they would help you find the contacts you need before you go on the trade mission. So you wouldn't be going into the country blind. You'd actually be connected with the people that you need to interact with. So here's just a map of the countries that we have offices in. And something that to note is that ESG will often sponsor trade missions. We obviously are currently not doing that, given everything that's going on globally. But prior to the pandemic, we had a trade mission to South Africa planned for the spring. And so when you do a trade mission like that, everything is kind of taken care of for you by our international offices and by the Global New York Division. They plan meetings for you, they plan itineraries, so you are able to take advantage of as much as you possibly can when you're in the country. So South Africa was one that we had. We've had trade missions to Israel, and then we also work on different trade shows, such as the Hanover Messe Trade Show, and collaborate with U.S. Commercial Service to bring U.S. delegations there. And if you have any questions about any of these programs, you can visit our Global New York website. You can also contact Brian. He is available by email right now. I think he might still be working remotely. And you can also call the Long Island Regional Office. That's our phone number. And I work out of that office. We have a lot of different people who cover different programs within the region. But I can also answer questions that you might have about Global New York, or connect you directly to Brian if you need to talk to him as well. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. Very informative. and great services. Thank you for letting us know and sharing with us. Now we come to our Q&A session. We have questions. We received some questions in the chat box, and we also have questions to share with our panelists. So at this moment, I'll unmute everyone. If you have any questions, you can share. And in the meantime, let me see if I can. Yes, okay, everyone is unmuted. So let me see what type of questions I have. So one of the questions is for Ryan. So it's in the chat box. Ryan, you mentioned franchising as a sector of opportunity in Vietnam. Is it in food, professional services, or all subsectors? This is the question.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. And historically, we've done a lot so far in the food sector. You already have brands. All the major U.S. brands are there, and there's certainly an affinity for additional U.S. food franchisees. But it's a tough market, and I'll say that because in Vietnam, I can go down the street and buy a banh mi for $1 and have a full lunch. So pricing is always difficult, but it is in food. But there's a growing need for additional kind of professional services, whether that is in courier services or even just kind of management services of buildings or of hospitals. That's an opportunity. But traditionally, we've done a lot in the food sector, which is a little bit saturated. But you also have, even in hardware. One of the major hardware stores opened up in Vietnam just at the end of last year. So there's a lot of different opportunities here.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. When I was actually watching your presentation and listen, I was also taking my notes. Franchise is an opportunity area. Medical device, healthcare, training, IT, pharma. These are all important fields that U.S. companies can focus in Vietnam, from my understanding.
Definitely. And I would also say, anything aviation, airports related is very big. And then some opportunities.
In terms of compliance requirements for, say, healthcare or, say, aerospace. So typically, for example, in US, typically also in Europe, for example, there are regulations, right, for based on defense industry and some regulation basically for safety and security purposes. How is it in Vietnam, you will say, in that sense?
No, it's highly regulated from a safety perspective, and that is where kind of working with our team in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, it's so important to have the right distributor that can go through this registration process, because it can be cumbersome and it takes some time. It takes 6 to 12 months, probably on average, to go through that registration process. So it's important to work with our team to make sure you're working with the right folks. But it's there, and that's probably some of the biggest trade barriers that we work with is on the registration process. As Vietnam looks to go from paper to electronic process, but it's taken some time.
Yes, that's very important. We have another question. What is the average wage in Vietnam versus China? Manufacturers are always looking for ways to reduce costs in their supply chain. I think that's also a trend nowadays. Some businesses, some manufacturing operations trying to be moved to Vietnam from China, I think.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know the comparison of the average wage difference, but the opportunity, it's definitely lower than what you have in China, because as you rightfully pointed out, companies are now starting to look to diversify their supply chains well beyond China, and Vietnam is a natural partner, especially if you look at the free trade agreements they have with the EU. They're still part of CPTPP, so that opens up the market to a lot of other opportunities beyond just the Vietnamese market too. So we're seeing much more of a diversification with new manufacturing facilities in Vietnam in a greater push. The biggest strain that it's going to have is on the logistics and supply chain sector of doing the inter-Vietnamese shipping. So that's something that we're starting to work on more. But it's a lot of companies are starting to diversify and to look towards Vietnam as a solution.
Let me see if we have any other questions. Okay, I'm also checking our chat box. Some questions come into my private box. So let's see. So one of the questions is for Maricel. So if a company is for the markets that U.S. commercial service actually present services, offer services. What if there is a market that is not covered by U.S. commercial services? Are there any resources if in that case, Maricel?
Hi. Yes. So we, as I mentioned, I think that we are located in over 75 countries. And in those countries where we do not have an office or a physical presence, we tend to work with our State Department colleagues. So they can do the type of work that we would do otherwise, like looking for that for whatever it is that you need, a joint venture, a distributor, a direct buyer. And how to get in touch with them is mostly through us. So if someone comes to me and says, I'm getting many trade leads from Bolivia, for example, we do not have an office in Bolivia. If you go to our website, trade.gov, and check out the map where we have presence, Bolivia will not come up except in a different color, indicating that it's covered by the Department of State. Most generally, we really try to, the U.S. government tries to offer resources and help in as many countries as it is possible between the State Department and the U.S. Commercial Service combined. So that's another resource there.
As a follow-up question, what type of companies typically use the commercial service programs and resources, you will say?
So it's quite a wide variety. We have small, medium, and large size companies. As I indicated, in most industries, I provided a list of the ones that we specifically cover on Long Island. And it can go from a mom and pop shop, I guess, but we do have the 51% requirement, and also that the company has a product and to some extent already a presence in the US, some sort of business experience and that type of stuff. Because if someone's looking to begin a business, that would be a different resource that they would have to go to. For example, the small business development centers, which is not covered by us. We tend to help companies that are already sort of solidified here in the United States and they want to take that extra step to increase their profit or increase their international presence, either expanding into a new market or entering a completely new market. As I mentioned, we have small, medium, and large. It goes from the Boeings and the Lockheed Martins of the world to many companies on Long Island that are relatively small.
Thank you, Maricel. I have some also questions for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, as for Empire State Development and the services provided, can you tell us about nonprofit organizations? Can they also benefit from the services? Is it possible?
Yeah, like I mentioned before in the slide on the Global New York Fund, nonprofits can take advantage of the Global New York Fund. And I think it's generally underutilized by nonprofits. It's primarily used by businesses, as you can imagine, that are looking to start exporting. But I think a push that they're trying to make in that office is to let nonprofits know that they can use it. And like I used as the example before, if they wanted to take like a group on a trade mission, that would be a good program to use. So they could almost like sub-grant out or use it as a way to pay some of the expenses that are associated with the trade mission. I used HIA as an example. I don't think HIA is a nonprofit, but you can also, if you're not a nonprofit, you can, or if you're not registered as a nonprofit, you can collaborate with an IDA, an industrial development agency, or a local development corporation, and they would be the applicant, but then you could kind of get your membership to go on do the program that you're trying to coordinate. But that's a way to apply for the program if you're not a registered nonprofit. So it would be through collaboration. So that's like, just as another example is the Long Island Food Council is also not a nonprofit, but they're kind of a trade organization. If they wanted to get a group together to do maybe a domestic trade show, they could apply for the Global New York fund to offset some of the costs to allow, you know, a couple of 3 or 4 participants to do the trade show that the Long Island Food Council is taking people to. So it's an interesting opportunity, and I think the more people know about it, then maybe the more different types of organizations can take advantage of it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think I have a question for Ryan. Ryan, during the presentation you mentioned, right now the country is safe in terms of COVID-19. They don't have many cases. That's how it looks. And given current travel restrictions, it's hard to be there. From what we understand, they have a way of doing business as in-person relationships, right? So the country has changed in that sense as to build relationships. It has to be in person, or are there any other channels that can be used to have business relationships?
Yeah, and I think they've started to adapt. You know, even when the country was on lockdown, you know, you had the ministries actually doing a video conference call with the ambassador. So even the government, you know, the traditional government face-to-face long meetings in very grandiose rooms are starting to adapt in their way of doing business and beginning to engage with companies virtually. So there is a big opportunity there on that. To utilize some of our virtual introduction services to really, frankly, just keep the momentum going. And you know, that way things aren't stalled out, and there's still opportunities to engage and grow the business while being stuck at home. So you know, our team's done a great job in doing, you know, more than a dozen of these services thus far. So you know, we're happy to help companies create these connections from the comfort of their own home.
Thank you. As a follow-up question, what is the most important advice you give companies looking to do business in Vietnam?
You know, I would say, I really would say overall, it's you just need to have patience. You know, these things just take time. You're not going to come out of a first meeting with the, you know, the handshake done deal. And so it really just takes the patience and the developing of relationships. That's the biggest thing. You know, usually when companies would come out to Vietnam, you know, after we meet with them and after they do a whole day of meetings, our first thing would be, okay, when are you coming back next? Because that's really what it's going to take to be successful is making sure you take that time to develop those relationships in order to be successful.
I appreciate it. We have one more question. How is the availability of high-speed internet or Wi-Fi capability?
Yeah. I mean, on that part, no issues at all. I mean, you know, sometimes if you're working maybe in some of the more rural, remote areas, you know, you'll have some Wi-Fi internet issues, connectivity issues. But you know, thus far in all the different programs we've had, that has not posed a problem at all. The biggest issue that I think companies will face doing these things virtually is the translation, but that's where our team is happy to join to make sure that, you know, kind of the nuances aren't missed along the way.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Is there any other questions from our attendees? You can unmute your microphone and share your question, or you can type in the chat box, whichever is easier for you. Let's see if there's any other questions. Okay, looks like we addressed all the questions. Well, let me see. I think, okay. So one more question. I think it's also a very good question. So how is the social media and commercial trade situation? So there is a communist government there, as we know it. So are there any restrictions as to social media or commercial trade?
No, there aren't. It's not like you find in China where you have where you don't have Facebook, you don't have Google, and in Vietnam, there's full access to Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter. The restrictions more are on, to be frank, kind of dissent from the government and in speaking out against the government. But for purely commercially speaking, that's not an issue with the use of social media and utilizing social media to kind of drum up additional business. So all assets are available to U.S. companies to utilize.
Okay, that's good to know. That's great. I think we addressed all the questions. Well, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Maricel, Ryan, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing your information, educational content with us. Thank you for your insights. Much appreciated. It was actually we learned a lot, and we are always looking forward to working with you, being with you in our coming committee meetings. Now we are ending our meeting. I'd like to also thank our attendees. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your great questions. It was great. So we have been recording this session, and we'll also post it on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and also on HIA Li's website. And as our co-chair Ram mentioned, we have another committee meeting coming up about how to manage and control stress. So we are also looking forward to seeing you at our coming committee meeting. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, there once.